is the main conversation of the day, looking onto the main themes that have been occurring for the last 8 days, and that corruption being one of them, leadership being the other, among the others that we're going to be looking into as we discuss along the way. Uganda is finding itself once again at the uncomfortable position of questioning leadership, power and accountability, and the ongoing investigations around the former Speaker of Parliament, MorningAtNTV Among, have reignited debate over corruption, debate over political loyalty, and also whether accountability in Uganda is actually applied equally or selectively. And people have made reference to the Mabati saga. Why is it that there was selective conclusion of the case, yet there were so many people that had been implicated, including the Speaker herself? Supporters have called it a long overdue crackdown on abuse of office, which is a discussion that still we've had in the last 8 days here on MorningAtNTV, that our leaders now stronger than the institutions that they lead, to the extent that they influence the matters that be in the institutions. Critics on the other side have argued that corruption investigations have often intensified when political alliances are shifting. So this morning we are asking ourselves a question: is the tide actually shifting, or is it still going to be staying in the same position? Is Uganda witnessing genuine accountability? But at the end of the day, what is even genuine accountability, especially given the case study that we have today? The papers this morning, the New Vision, among 30 MPs on police radar, the Daily Monitor, final sweep, a 5th floor has been swept with a notice: crime scene, do not cross. So is corruption increasingly being weaponized in political competition, is another question. And as an anti-corruption advocate, John Githingo, said once, corruption is not just about stealing money, it is about stealing opportunity and stealing justice. And so joining me this morning to interrogate these tides that we are in right now as a country, to my extreme left, I do have Chigundu Ronald, who is a lawyer and a legal analyst who has great interest in good governance for our country. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you?
Thank you. I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yes, I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yes.
You're okay?
Yes, I'm okay.
Given what is happening in our country,
I'm okay,
you're okay?
as an individual.
No, given what is happening in the country.
Yes, it is one thing, but health-wise, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Job Kija is also joining us, a policy and political analyst. Kija, your heartbeat is okay, your pressure is okay with the news that has been unfolding day after day?
Yeah, of course, some of my members of my alumni group were saying that, you know, this week should have actually been declared either weekend or a public holiday because of the manner in which things are moving. Every 30 minutes that you spend off your phone, you find that there's breaking news. So we needed the whole probably weekend extension of the week to really just follow what's going on. You're not working, you're just focusing on what's going on.
Okay.
But I think ultimately, first of all, I need to say that I am happy that the things that we have been talking about for a long period of time, I mean, look at the guys that marched to Parliament, who were arrested and they were punished for nothing, but now the system seems to be waking up.
All right. Corruption probe expanding in Parliament queries as Tayewa gets a CDF nod for second term. And this brings us into the first thing that we need to deal with, the question of time. Is the timing right, or is the timing selective? If we pay attention to the tide, the President has just sworn in last week. The 12th Parliament has just been sworn in last week. And now we're seeing events unfolding right after this transition of offices have happened. Job, allegations around Parliament, especially the 11th Parliament leadership, did not just start last week into this week, but they have been there for the last 5 years. Why now? Is accountability finally catching up, or are we seeing a political timing at work?
First of all, my consistent argument has been that Parliament has been leaderless. They've been lacking leadership. We've just been having individuals that are, for people that develop websites, they will tell you that there's something called placeholders. Placeholders are if you need an image to put in a certain location and you don't have it yet, you can get a picture, for instance, of a cartoon and place it there. So what we've been having in Parliament is really placeholders for the positions of leadership. We've not had competent leaders in the position of the Speaker. We've not had competent leaders in the position of the Deputy Speaker. Even the committees have actually been leaderless. the Parliamentary Commission has been leaderless, because even itself, it has not been meeting as it is supposed to be meeting. Because the leader of opposition will, for instance, tell you that on several occasions, he was denied access to the Parliamentary Commission meetings. So in that regard, actually, the leadership of Parliament has not been constituted. So we have been having an institution that lacks leadership, and in that regard, it was even impossible for Parliament to effectively play the role that it was supposed to be playing in terms of its focal responsibilities of legislation, oversight, appropriation, and representation. So it has been difficult. So the question specifically you asked in terms of the accountability crisis that has been there, I think for a long time, for us that have been analyzing the trends, even looking at corruption, we have been saying that Parliament is a crime scene. It is a gang of thieves, of people that are just meeting to share the national budget. It's a gang of thieves for people that are stealing even from the most vulnerable. A number of these members of Parliament were involved in the Iron Sheet saga. They've been involved in stealing money for cooperatives. They've been involved in syndicate corruption with the executive. And in fact, for me, when I saw that tape placed on Parliament yesterday, that it is a crime scene, I immediately concluded that actually this tape needs to be put on the executive. It also needs to be put on the judiciary. So if we are saying we want to clean up, let us stop posturing and do these theatrics that we are doing of getting a Rolls Royce and driving it throughout the whole of Kampala streets as if the distance between Kigo and Naguru is so long that you should drive it throughout to show everybody that now we've captured a thief. There are so many thieves in Parliament, in the executive,
and when you
in the
say
judiciary.
captured a thief, you've actually not captured the thief. You've captured the property of the thief, but
Yes.
the thief is still in a safe place. They've not yet been prosecuted, so capture wouldn't apply to even begin with.
Yeah, well, we can argue that there's a spotlight on the thief and the person, at least we know, because I think far as we understand, over the past 8 days, that person has been under house arrest. So for that, we can argue that at least we know where the thief is. So apparently we are now gathering evidence. So I think for me the point I'm making is that, let us stop this posturing. Let us stop these theatrics that we are doing of, this amount of money has been found. I mean, the guys that did the march to Parliament, the parliamentary exhibition, they came out with evidence which was well documented. The leader of opposition has been talking about this corruption. So many other actors have been talking about it. Okay, where has this entire state apparatus been to bring these people to book? Because if anything, the state apparatus actually, for me, has been complicit in this corruption, okay, that has been going on in Parliament. And they even need to account to us. The IGG received letters more than 2 years ago complaining about what was going on in Parliament. The IGG cleared what was going on there. They never acted. But why is it that they are looking now at a time where we are in a political situation where they want to fix somebody out of the politics, and now they are claiming that, we are the best fighters against corruption? So I think for me, if we are to clean up, let us clean up. There are so many things that the person under interrogation at the moment did. They interfered with the electoral process, which has brought up the crisis that we have at the moment. If you look at our own constituency, which is Bukedia district, they never had an election. People were erased off the voters register. People were abducted. This person is rumored to have interfered with judicial proceedings. People were denominated in about 20 constituencies. Okay. People came as unopposed, and it is alleged that actually she had a hand in all this. So I think if we are to clean up, we need to go and clean up the Electoral Commission. Individuals that were involved with her need to be brought to book. The judiciary, same story. The
cleanup that you're talking to or making reference to, even if you intend to clean, to take your clothes for cleaning, it still starts with you picking up the exact shirt you want to take for cleaning, the exact suit you want to take to be taken to the dry cleaners, and then the dry cleaner does their part of the process, and then they hand that back to you. Mm-hmm. So it's not that they can do all that cleaning all at once. This is why I want to bring in the legal perspective from where Chigondo is seated. What does this anti-corruption process look like for you? Is it risking to be more political rather than judicial? Is it looking to be more selective than otherwise?
Of course, when you look at both of them, whether it's legal or political, one feeds the other. One feeds the other in a way. And like my colleague said, what we should look at and what Ugandans should expect is to avoid the whole investigation being pinned onto or looked at as targeting an individual. Yes, she may have her issues, but it shouldn't seem like so, because there are glaring issues that Ugandans have been talking about on X everywhere. And actually, I think the leadership of Parliament failed to address those issues from the beginning. Probably if some of those issues were addressed, we wouldn't be where we are now. Of course, you look at the Anti-Corruption Act, abuse of office, all those are stated. The Act talks about abuse of office and how somebody should behave, illicit enrichment and all that. When you look at the Leadership Code Act, it talks about declaring some assets. Of your assets, and if probably that wasn't done, we are going to see issues coming about. Most of them will be prosecuted because probably they held some things by themselves, they never declared them. So we should look at a scenario whereby the institution is cleaned up as an institution, because probably it failed to, and this should be a lesson to most of these members of Parliament. They should pick, if they don't pick a lesson from this, then they have a problem. Because at the end of the day, it will come for them individually at an individual basis. Because the role of a member of Parliament is to make sure they legislate, is to make sure they do policy, is to make sure they budget, is to make sure they talk about these issues. But some of them kept, and you see, some of them are now coming up. There was fear created and with MPs. They couldn't talk. You could see decorum was lost and all those things. So what we are saying is that investigations shouldn't target an individual, they should target an institution. And it shouldn't be selective. It shouldn't, because the House was run by both the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, the Parliamentary Commissioners, who are basically the managing arm or the administrative arm of Parliament. There is the office of the Clerk of Parliament and all that. So it should go down to every office. That is where Ugandans now will appreciate that, okay, this was done properly. And at the end of the day, let us see people being prosecuted properly. Because
when you say being prosecuted properly, can you please elaborate? Because with the posturing that we have seen, let's take the case of the Mabati saga. Those that were not able to kneel down, quote unquote, and seek for forgiveness from the chairman of the party, they faced the wrath of the war. Those that were able to say, "I'm sorry, sir," were pardoned. And so when you say prosecution, and it's there's prosecution that's judicial, then there's also prosecution that is the other side. Even some of them say,
Nadutu actually apologized. But she was sacrificed. She apologized. Daylight. She was even when she before the sentence was being passed, and because they give you an opportunity before passing sentence, all the mitigating factors, she acknowledged and she apologized even before she did. But if you had the president, I think in Chankwanzi, he said, Namuju Mukwano Gwang is my friend, so Namuju probably she forgave Namuju. But I mean, we should see a prosecution where at the end of the day, charges are not going to be dropped, because we expect to see that. It has become a norm that, okay, yes, they will post around, like you said, take the vehicles here and there, pictures are everywhere, all newspapers are reporting. At the end of the day, then you will hear 2 people are being prosecuted. Before close of proceedings, DPP has entered the withdrawal in all the prosecution. And at the end of the day, that doesn't help Ugandans, because now it will show somebody was trying to get down to an individual. It wasn't really honest. So let's have this corruption, like MK has said, we have all had that. Let it trickle down to all government institutions, and let it be a wake-up call to all other agencies of government, that if you do ABC, at the end of the day, you are accountable to Ugandans. You are accountable by your actions that you do. So let's see it that it is not looking at an individual, and at the end of the day, let everybody who is responsible be held so, because that is what Ugandans expect.
Moving on to Parliament and accountability, 30 MPs among the 50 that have been barred from leaving the country. Of course, on top on that list is Moses Magogo, who's Butyobe East Member of Parliament, but also husband to Anita Net. Among you do have security people in there on that list. You do have other individuals from the Parliament's finance, budget, communications and welfare departments, and officials in proximity with the institutions' money flows have all been rounded up and will be facing investigation and interrogation to this regard. However, when we look at Parliament itself, it must be also scrutinized. The leadership says a lot about the rest of, you know, the people that are under it, which both of you have actually made mention of. Job, Parliament making the laws of this country and looking to the 11th Parliament and how, away from the conduct of the presiding officer, now the conduct of the presiding officer as to the mandate of her duties and responsibility to the House, when Parliament itself faces such ethical scrutiny, what message is it sending out there about the institutional credibility moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's not even about the message it is sending out there. It's about the image that it has before the citizens. Because I think generally citizens lost confidence in the institution of Parliament at two levels. Like I said earlier, even when you look at the Afrobarometer reports, which have interfaced with citizens in terms of the impressions that they have of Parliament, you see that actually citizens have no trust in Parliament in terms of accountability. And then number two, the manner in which Parliament has been conducting its business, even in terms of legislation, you'll find that they are required to conduct public hearings, for instance. They are required to conduct research, to inform the laws that they are going to be passing, but they've not been doing that. Even in instances where they have pretended to be conducting public hearings, like we saw in the case of the Protection of Sovereignty Bill, you realize that actually they don't use the content that is picked from the public hearings. They go ahead and just rubber stamp what has come from the executive. In fact, we have heard that on several occasions, for most of the contentious laws, the reports are not actually written by the clerks to the committee. They are written by people. In fact, we've heard that even some of the reports have been written by people in the military and just given to these committees to pass through Parliament. So the reality is that Parliament has not been functioning as an institution of Parliament. We know that even to pass contentious laws, like you remember, the removal of presidential term limits, the removal of presidential age limits, the coffee bill, the UPDF amendment bill, even this sovereignty bill which has just been passed, members of Parliament have been compromised and paid money. In fact, when we are looking at this sovereignty bill, a number of MPs, because for me it took some time even in Parliament, maybe some of them didn't even know that I was not an MP, and you hear them asking how much are we going to be paid to pass this protection of sovereignty bill. And the challenge is not at Parliament alone, because there is somebody that has been paying them. You know it so well that actually the president has normalized this business of buying members of Parliament. He has really watered down the whole concept of Parliament as an institution. And he should actually take responsibility for this, because it is him that started by the practice of giving them 5 million in 2005, and now the price I think has gone up to almost like 300 million in certain instances. So the corruption that we are seeing in Parliament is not a problem of Parliament. There has been one constant, because it started I think with the 7th Parliament, and now we are at the 12th Parliament. The 12th Parliament, even before it starts, he has already bribed them. The only constant in that entire period of over 20 years has been one person, President Museveni. So President Museveni needs to let Parliament free such that it can play its oversight function. Otherwise, in all this corruption that we are seeing in Parliament, he is actually complicit, and he should hold himself responsible to citizens and indeed promise us, like he promised at the swearing in ceremony, that you know this Kisanja is for no sleep, it is for no corruption. So if indeed he is going to clean up, let him help us to ensure that under his government moving forward, the three arms of government are independent, they are free, they are exercising their functions as institutions without his arm in them.
That brings us to a question of patronage and corruption, because there's a closing gap in separation of the ruling party and the government, and so you get to see a lot of influence where there's the position and say, no, the National Resistance Movement chairman is the one who gave that money, and so there's the president and there's the party chairman, and then the patronage that we are seeing across the bar has not only been to what we see of Anita Among, but it speaks a lot at also the other ruling party MPs that we've been seeing in Parliament. So what is the cost of patronage in fueling corruption?
Like he said, when you look at, I think the Right Honourable Kadaga during the campaigns of the second female vice chairperson, I mentioned about it, and she clearly told the president, it was all over news, that when she was speaker, she didn't have the liberty to sit in cabinet, and I think which has been different with Right Honourable Anita Among. One, the issue of patronage is where has made Parliament transactional. Has made Parliament transactional because all that MPs are looking at is basically transacting. That's why I said MPs should this time think for themselves. Yes, the president may do ABCD, but at the end of the day, you have your head. You have your head as a member. If members of Parliament decide at one point that yes, we have received this 100 million, but we are going to do otherwise, they can. They can turn this country around. They can. But you see that they cannot decide.
Let's make reference to the 11th Parliament. A few of them who have attempted to do so and come out publicly and say, we received 40 million Ugandan shillings. Here it is the money, I am returning it. And they're saying, how did you get the money? I got the money. According to the statement, they got the money from the home of the speaker. And then a few days later, they come back to the very same public and change their statements. And a few days later, they're even crossing over to the party. So if those who have attempted to come clean, having received such monies, have actually been foiled back into the system, what does that say for the rest of them?
You know, we are under capture, I can say. We are under captive. We are under captive. That is one of the biggest challenges we have. And most of the MPs that we have are also desperate. We have that challenge. Because most of them, if you look at the Kenyan Parliament, if you look at some of those other parliaments, most of them, a member of Parliament is really, you cannot be bribed by 40 millions, by 50 millions, because you have it. But most of them, you find them go to Parliament, that is their first job. What do you expect? So our politics has been patronized to that extent. And what MPs should take as a lesson is that they can do this for this country. They can be able to stand by themselves if they decide to. If you've been seeing what has been going on, yesterday I saw members of Parliament, some were declared interest in running as deputy speakers. Immediately, somebody made a post that, okay, we are now endorsing, before even the sex seats, before even the caucus seats, immediately somebody posted that we are endorsing Right Honourable Tayebwa, all of them without really due cause. They are being told what to do. They do not have any courtesy to say, this is my stand as a person. I represent a constituency. This is what my constituency says. I will deserve better. So we have that challenge. And the president, like he said, has really vulgarized everything and monetized the Parliament.
This is where I want to come back to Job, because I think my initial question would then have been, is Parliament paying the price for what we are seeing as weak oversight or political patronage? But now allow me to revise it, given what you have both submitted. Who is even paying the price to begin with of this institutional weakness and the patronage?
Of course, Ugandans are paying the price for this weak oversight, the patronage that we are seeing. They are unfairly paying the price because, I mean, there's this narrative that, we get the leaders that we deserve. But for me, I don't subscribe to that, because the reality is that even when you look at the manner in which our elections are conducted, they are fraudulent because there are some people that have captured the electoral process. If you look at the manner in which most of these people found their way to Parliament, many of them either bought their way to Parliament or they shot their way to Parliament. Because you look at, for instance...
They literally have to get that money back.
Yeah, of course, they've invested. I was talking to someone yesterday who told me that their opponent spent about 5 billion shillings to get that seat. So the question is, if someone spends 5 billion shillings to get just a parliamentary seat, when the reality is that by the end of the 5 years, the 5-year term, the total that the person would have recouped is 4.5 billion shillings. It means that that person is actually going there to indulge themselves in other dubious activities that are going to help them recover that 5 billion shillings. But also, the manner in which the people that are in charge of the elections, and I'll look at the executive, because you see, unfortunately, the Electoral Commission is appointed by the president, who is also a player in the electoral process. So it's more like, we've always said that, you know, you have a referee also being a player in the football match. Of course, Arsenal just won the trophy yesterday. So, but you know, basically the Ugandan is paying the price, because if you have weak oversight, it means you'll not be able to deal with this corruption. You're going to have incompetent leadership in Parliament, but then that also goes to the judiciary, because if you have the judiciary also being appointed, for instance, by the same person who is the executive, okay, and then cleared through a compromised parliament, you're going to have a very weak governance system, whereby the Ugandan at the end of the day is that is suffering. If you look at the manner in which, for instance, election petitions have been handled in this country.
Let's not even go to the election petition. Let's think. Let's have some forward thinking that if this is happening, I think the next institution to then guide in what is happening right now, or to have a hand in what's happening right now, is the judiciary. So it is now also being put on the spot, and through what happens and how they conduct this case, will also do a telling. It will be telling of a story of how patronage could have trickled down to how does the judiciary now use this opportunity to show that we are independent as an arm of government.
Of course, we have the very recent unfortunate precedent, which was set again by the president, whereby the anti-corruption court was trying individuals that had dipped their hands in state coffers, and the president called the DPP and told the DPP withdraw the charges. So the anti-corruption court was going on with its cases, with its work, and then the president interfered with that process. The president did it, first of all, illegally, because when the judiciary is doing its work, considering that it is supposed to be independent, it's not supposed to interfere. He has a prerogative of mercy, which he can apply by giving them a presidential pardon after they have been convicted. But as the proceedings are ongoing, he doesn't have that right. Okay. So he actually did something which was wrong. And I think for me, again, like you have rightly said, the judiciary is in the spotlight. But at the end of the day, considering the manner in which our governance and our politics is structured at the moment, the buck still falls back on the president. So I think in all this, actually, the person we are watching is the president, because he is the one that has been interfering with the parliamentary processes. He's the one that has been interfering with judicial processes. So he can't tell us, you know, the judiciary is the one that is responsible for letting these people off the hook. It is him that is going to say, I am now letting this judiciary play its role, and then it does its work.
The other spotlight is on another person here, and that's the office of the Deputy Speaker. Birds of a feather usually flock together. So if the Speaker is under scrutiny, but the Deputy Speaker seems to be exonerated from the scrutiny, yet they worked closely together to perform the duties that they did perform, presiding over the 11th Parliament, and all these things happening both under their noses. What message is that sending out, Chigund?
Like I said initially,
what is the writing on the wall?
Should not target an individual. It should target an institution. Yes, one is the deputy of the other, but of course there are delegated powers. The only way maybe Right Honourable, the Deputy Speaker will go away with it is if any of the investigations don't pin to him as an individual. Because
so they're not two offices. It's the office of the speakership. There's just the speaker's deputized by another person. So it's one office.
Yes, it is one office.
When they were buying generators, they bought 4.
It is one office, but if you look at how they operate, both offices have a budget. The deputy speaker runs the budget, and also the speaker runs the budget. Of course, internally they have the way they split. So we should see those investigations trickle down to issues of accountability in the office of the deputy speaker as well.
Okay.
Yes, it shouldn't be selective.
Job, what's your comment? What's the writing on the wall for you?
Actually, for me, I wanted to correct Chigundu that the office of the deputy speaker exists as an office. It is not delegated authority. But also what we've been seeing in terms of some of the evidence that even is available online, which I think the investigation is also relying on, is that the deputy speaker's office has actually also been involved. Not just the deputy speaker's office, but even the clerk, because there's no way all this business could have happened with the accounting officer not being in the know. The accountants, we've seen the manner in which monies have been going through individual members' accounts to the tune of even 4 billion shillings. So all these individuals actually have to be brought to book. But the point I think you're making, Priscilla, is that from the politics, the manner in which we are seeing the politics, they seem to be focusing on the speaker. And yesterday, if we are to go by the tweet by the Chief of Defense Forces, the deputy speaker seems to be being exonerated. I think for me this is wrong. And like Chigundu said, let us not target individuals, let us target offices. If individuals in these offices, of course the office comes with the individual because they are the ones who commit the crimes, okay? But let's look at everything in the manner in which it has been abused and deal with it squarely. Otherwise, MK is claiming to be fighting corruption, but it's actually an indictment on him to come out and even endorse somebody that the whole public knows committed these crimes with the other person. By now, he should actually be staying out of this, and he lets the investigation take its course, and people are brought to justice from whatever they did.
Speaking of the people, the Constitution gives power to the people. It states that power does belong to the people. You have made mention of the fact that all eyes are on the president and how he gets to manage the situation at hand. But if we're to go through the Constitution, if the power actually belongs to the people, what's the role and responsibility of the public right now in ensuring that there's justice that is served, in ensuring that corruption is addressed continuously, especially institutional corruption? Let me start with you. Good.
I think Ugandans in a way did their part. They have done their part actually. It is only the executive disappointing them. Yeah. This cry has been there, I think, from the time the new leadership at Parliament took mandate of what is happening. They began crying out. Even members of Parliament, you saw Honorable Young on the floor of Parliament saying, why are you making us suffer looking for signatures left to right when these members of Parliament are here? Why are you even hiding members of Parliament to sign for us, to append their signatures? They always made sure they wanted to table, they wanted to bring a motion to investigate themselves on the floor of Parliament. It was shut down. All has been happening in Parliament is, yes, the eyes have it. No due course to what, actually I think, if I may remember, you may find there was not even a reply to most of what those petitioners or what the public was saying. It's simply, Chris Obore was simply, rubbishing and, saying the leadership is a saint. That is wrong. That is where the problem came from. People were never heard from the beginning. If these issues were handled, we wouldn't have been here. Probably even the powers be would find a way to.
On that note, what lesson must the 12th Parliament go in with?
Members of the 12th Parliament should learn to think for themselves. And they should know who their bosses are. Their bosses are the constituency. Because that's where they seek their mandate from. They should be able to listen from the people. They should be able to stand by the people all the time.
Job.
Yeah, I want to agree with Chigundu that actually the citizen has played their part. Unfortunately, what has happened to them, the response by the state that is supposed to be protecting them, has actually victimized them, because as we speak, there are people that marched to Parliament peacefully that are still undergoing trial. There are people that actually are still missing to date. They are still under pre-trial detention. So for me, I think at this point, the state actually needs to give those people justice, because what they were calling the state to do is what they claim to be doing right now. So considering that those people that marched to Parliament have now been vindicated by this ongoing investigation, these people actually need to be given justice. They need to be compensated for their time, okay, which they spent even behind bars. There are some of us that were even helping them in different ways to make sure that they get pro bono legal response, etc. Those attract costs. The lawyers that provided pro bono time to those people should actually be paid. But also, most importantly, the government really needs to guarantee us that citizens are going to be allowed to play their part in fighting corruption. Because they always tell us, you know, corruption is our collective responsibility to fight. It's not only us that are in government that are going to fight it. Now, when citizens get online and they start fighting this corruption, we are seeing obnoxious laws being introduced to curtail their engagement online. We are seeing them being arrested and charged in courts for all manner of offenses. Government needs to let citizens to play their role, that consider that it keeps claiming that, you know, citizens fighting corruption is our collective responsibility. Let citizens be allowed to demonstrate peacefully, because in the Constitution of Uganda, citizens have their right to peaceful assembly, peaceful expression, peaceful engagement. So let government allow citizens to play their role, because I think from what we are seeing now, we have seen that citizen involvement in the fight against corruption is actually very helpful, because even the letter that the IGG is relying on to investigate the current speaker was written by citizens. Okay? So citizens have a critical role to play. Let government not curtail citizen participation in the fight against corruption.
Citizen Job Kisha, thank you so much for your 2 cents on the matter. What's your recommendation to the 12th Parliament?
My recommendation to the 12th Parliament is that they need to know that they are supposed to be existing independent of the executive. Already we are seeing them doing very funny theatrics of endorsing people that have been endorsed by military men. These MPs need to know that these are going to be their leaders. If they choose bad leaders, they are going to end up in the same situation we are in at the moment, and they will be non-functional like we have had in the 11th Parliament.
Well, those recommendations, it's really the same recommendation that you're both putting forward, that at the end of the day, they must know that their mandate is to the people they represent. However, if some of them have come in to seek as ways to seek jobs and make more money than really serve people and ensure that there's better service delivery, then how true can this be 5 years from now? At the end of the day, this debate is larger than the individuals, it's larger than the officers. It is about whether institutions do apply standards consistently and whether public trust can actually survive perceptions of selective justice. Thank you so much, Chikundu, also Ronald, for joining us on this table. As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, the time is always right to do what is right. That brings us to the end of our Kickstarter. We're being joined by our colleague Stephen Bide on ground, who's bringing us up to speed with another ceremony that is taking center stage. This time not for Uganda, but for Kampala as a capital city authority. You do have Ronald Balimwezo Nsubuga now being handed the instruments of power to lead Kampala capital as the new Lord Mayor after having ousted the 15-year reign of Elias Lukwago. Stephen Bide, good morning to you.